me hit a record here. There we
Wait,
go.
Here we go.
I don't consent to
I mean,
this.
I mean,
Mm,
There we
Griswold would know what we look like in the future, but he can't tell us because he's dead.
That's
mm.
true.
Right.
Maybe
Yeah.
the spirit of Criswell. He lives
Wonder if
within
he
you.
saw that coming.
Spirit of Criswell lives
Probably.
within you. Um,
And
oh, we
also
didn't
with you.
we didn't think about how to start this. 'Cause Luke starts things.
Um,
Does
yeah,
he do that? Does he do that movie anime or the thing where he does the narrator or whatever to describe the plot, like he does on the Sci-Fi?
no,
well,
he does a number,
yeah, he does a number on this one, but this one has no
but we
number.
don't even have. Yeah, we've completely failed to anticipate how to start
Oh, well,
this.
it's number
Um,
69.
Okay, I've decided this is the podcast. We're already rolling. That was the intro. If anyone's
okay,
wondering, this is Films and Filth. Matt is here.
Mark's here.
Playing the role of Luke today is Andrew. Hi, Andrew.
Hi.
You were here for the Human Centipede 2. Now you're here for Plan 9. That's, I guess, your zone on here. Luke is currently taking children to the magic forest.
Is that the one where people kill themselves?
No, that's the one where you have to go
That's
through the
every forest in Japan.
blindfolded maze. No, but
It
yeah,
can be.
Luke and I work at the same school, and summer school has just continued on. It's like endless. So he was called into work early. We can't complain. They're taking us to Okinawa, you know, all expenses paid
Well,
next month. So
you
you,
can't complain about your job at all in Japan, right?
you can always find something to complain about. Yeah.
Okay, I guess you can complain on your podcast with like 30 listeners, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Coming back from the Mission Log podcast, he was here for Citizen Kane. Now he is here for Plan 9 from Outer Space. Perfect bookends. Hi, John Champion.
Unbelievable. Hi. It is a distinct pleasure to be here, to have those two films under my belt now for your show.
Yeah, and I might be the I might be the B team on this one because John, you worked on the plans 1 through 8 from Outer Space in Chicago. You said,
Yeah. Yeah. The last play that I did in Chicago before I moved to LA was plans 1 through 8 from Outer Space. Now, I already loved this movie and I love the whole story of Ed Wood. And in fact, I played Ed Wood for a couple of years at a different show. But then you fast forward a bit, and my love of Plan 9 landed me in plans 1 through 8. And I'll drop this little bit of trivia bomb on you too. I have been inside Quality Studios in LA where they shot the studio scenes of this film. So the graveyard, the cockpit. Trying to think what else was shot in there, but I've been on that hallowed ground.
the
Right
patio.
between a transient hotel and a strip club, as it should be.
Yes.
So is it quality?
It is not. That is one of those ironic names.
Andrew, I know you've done some Rod Serling burlesque. I imagine you might have done some Ed Wood burlesque somewhere out there.
No. My contribution to this thing will just be that I'm the writer director of the movie Space Boobs in Space. And so I'm coming at it more from the low budget filmmakers angle, for as someone who produced a film that was almost universally hated during its stint on Amazon Prime. It was actually kicked off for poor customer experience.
All right.
That sounds like you have a problem with your refrigerator or something.
That's just what the email from Prime Video said. I'm just going by their terminology.
I'm blaming them on
Look,
this.
Thanks,
I
man.
find it hard to believe because I just went to IMDb for Space Boobs in Space, and I haven't even seen it, and consider me a fan, okay?
No thanks. What's the
Alright.
star rating currently on that one?
Let's see. You're rocking a 1.9 out of 10.
Yo.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Right.
yeah.
Well, the funny thing is, I actually have done Ed Wood burlesque. I mean, I have done tech support for Blast Off Burlesque, who's done several Ed Wood related things. In fact, I have Glenn or Glenda matching candles that I can't get to from here, but they are on a counter looking at
Nice.
me right now.
Nice.
Right. And yeah, this one is a 3.9, meaning it's not on the films and filth list. So I should explain a little bit about what we're doing briefly. With the SAG and WGA strikes, we have no legal, we can do whatever we want. We can talk about Star Wars all day if we want or whatever. But I felt one, it's cool to make a statement, right? Because I do think that the directors and not the directors, the actors and writers are getting a bit of the shaft now with the streaming, and we can throw in a little support. And two, John, your podcast basically has to go on a little bit of a hiatus. So I felt weird asking you on for the Love Guru. Sent you the link for the public domain, and you came right back with Plan 9, which of course in this camp is an instant yes. So
Yeah. I mean, it's a shame that the Love Guru isn't public domain, but we'll get to it one day, I feel certain. But very happy to talk about Plan 9 in the meantime. And thank you for the accommodation.
Right on.
Well, this is this is almost a perfect movie to do for this podcast because it kind of blew up the very conversation around what a quote unquote bad movie is, because all of us remember when this was constantly called the worst movie ever made, which I never agreed with, but then the movie Ed Wood kind of blew that up, and then on top of that all these other bad movies, new generation of quote unquote bad movies came out that it's we'll get into it. It's pretty interesting to take this whole thing apart.
It's been a while since I watched this, right? Probably 10 years or something. But watching it a few nights ago or whatever, I did start to realize, oh my God, I've seen this movie dozens of times. So it's and I can't remember when or where I first saw it.
I think I saw it after seeing the movie Ed Wood, but I could be wrong about that.
I know I saw Ed Wood.
You and I watched it together.
I'm sure we have. I just don't remember if that was the first time.
We watched it with Dan.
Okay. Maybe that was
I remember
the first time.
I remember the whole trajectory.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I just like, it's one of those things where I'm like, oh my God, it's like Ghostbusters. I like have some of this dialogue memorized, which for me is an extreme rarity on a movie. So John, what was your first Plan 9 experience?
That's really hard to remember because a lot of things get mixed up around that time that Ed Wood came out, which was around 95, 94, somewhere around there. And there was that mini explosion of Ed Wood. But even prior to that, there was a lot of heavy merchandising of Vampira and just the imagery of Vampira and Tor Johnson from this movie. So I feel like it's one of those things that percolated back there in the pop culture for a while. And I must have caught it on TV somewhere or a film fest somewhere, but I think it takes center stage after Ed Wood came out, and that made a much bigger deal out of it. Although I do remember, now that I think of it, I do remember like getting that original What the Raspberries Award book, and they had a write-up, and I know that I was familiar with the movie by then. But, very much to Mark's point, it's like we can really split hairs about what actually makes a bad movie bad and why this one is definitely not the worst bad movie ever made.
Well, let's catch up, people. This is one where few people might listen to the podcast without having seen the movie. So here is a summary for you. Okay, I'll punch that in later.
Was everyone waiting for one of us to start saying talk?
I was kind of a mind game. I was kind of curious to see what would happen. Well, I guess we should assess the different parts of this movie and decide if they're bad. If it's a film, it's a filth. We'll start with the actors. I'd forgotten what a wonderful name Dudley Manlove is. One of the I don't know if that's his real name or his stage name, but it's one of the best names ever. For sure.
Truly. Yeah. You couldn't make that up. Maybe he did make that up, but now it's taken and nobody else can make it up again. So good for him. R.I.P. Dudley Manlove.
Something that struck me watching it this time is it's like, oh, the acting in the movie is so bad. But it's kind of the contrast is needed. There's a few people here who are at least semi-professional, right? And can't, even if the line is bad, they sort of deliver the line. And then there's the people who can't, taking the pilot and his wife. Like, I mean, he's not great, but he's obviously he's
He's
acted a few times.
he's
Whereas
got those eyes, right?
she
I mean,
she probably has not.
yeah. I feel like he gives this type of performance where he looks really sad the whole movie, which works so well. It's like you don't even really have to depend on his delivery. He's got that look, like he's definitely got some leading man depth, for lack of a better term.
Well, see, the people you have to feel bad for are the ones who really took this seriously and thought, like, if I just make this one B movie, if I just stay working as an actor, then my next movie will be a hit. Like, then absolutely, I'm going to be working with the big leagues after this. And a guy like Gregory Walcott playing Jeff, like, that's what was going through his head the whole time, and he was just full of resentment for this entire experience. But so many other people here, they were just along for the ride. And even though Vampira, Mila Nurmi, didn't want to speak any dialogue, which is hilarious because the dialogue is kind of magical in this movie. She knows that it's all shtick because she'd been doing this shtick now for 5 years before this movie was made. So she gets it, and all she has to do is to show up and look cool. And it's just one more thing on the resume. But I have to feel bad for the ones who didn't understand the insanity of what Ed Wood was doing.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to pick up exactly where Tor Johnson reads on that particular spectrum.
Had forgotten how bad his English is, but he is a very, very scary corpse.
He's a wonderful corpse, and I love that his name is Daniel Clay in the movie. Like they couldn't even give him a name that I think Tor Johnson, was he Hungarian? I can't remember what his actual background is. Like, just give him a name that matches the accent, because otherwise, like, oh yeah, Dan, he's a San Fernando cop, born and raised like his dad in San Fernando Valley, and he comes on like, I am a big boy, Johnny. You can't. He's impenetrable. Love it.
It says he's Swedish. Yeah, I think this is a tradition that continued.
Swedish,
what was Schwarzenegger's character's name in Predator? He was like John America or something.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it was
exactly.
Like that. It just kept happening.
Well, Commando is John Matrix. That's great.
John Matrix. The word Matrix could be Austrian.
Yeah, there you go.
California did have a governor with a heavy Austrian accent for a while, so
yeah.
Tor Johnson, Daniel Clay could be, San Bernardino born and bred, and have
Johann Citizen.
Yes,
that would have been a cool one. And then of course the most infamous, I guess, is Bela Lugosi not quite being in this movie.
Well, he's a scary Dracula and a sad Dracula.
I guess that's where, the context of Tim Burton's Ed Wood does help a little bit. It actually retroactively adds some emotional depth to Lugosi being on screen, right?
Yeah,
otherwise,
it definitely helps.
This is just a goofy last role, and it's not the worst of last roles, really. What was it? I was just listening to people talking about some other last roles, like Christopher Plummer. Christopher Plummer, his last role was like some terrible CGI Chinese animation dub. So that's his last role. Jimmy Stewart's last role is An American Tail 5 Goes West, So, hey, Plan 9 from Outer Space, not a bad last credit to have.
Yeah, not too bad. And even more kind of sweet and fun when you do have that context from the movie, or just, in a biography of Bela or Ed Wood, that they didn't shoot his footage with any plan. It was just like, I've got a camera, I've got this iconic actor. What does he want to do more than anything? He wants to be on camera. He wants to be working. Let's make him an actor again. So good. And I think there is a more cynical way to chalk that up as exploitation. And there are a handful of people who said that at the end that they weren't really friends, and that Ed was pushing him, just kind of trying to make a buck off of him. But there are a lot more people who say, like, no, they genuinely were those friends, and they genuinely did want to work together. So let him have that.
I mean, he gives him a lot in Bride of the Monster.
Yeah, he sure does.
Well, he was on set for that, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, like, a lot of that movie is Lugosi chewing scenery, which is like part of what makes it really fun.
And I think my favorite, because honestly, if anyone wants to contest this, go ahead. I find Bride of the Monster like a little bit dull.
I think this is more fun.
Yeah, I love Glen or Glenda, and I love Lugosi just chewing up his little monologues in Glen or Glenda. So that actually is my favorite Ed Wood. In 2023, this is probably not quite the right group of people to talk about that movie in depth, which is one of the reasons we're not. But you know,
I would agree with that. Like order, I like Glen or Glenda better than Plan 9. I like Plan 9 better than Bride of the Monster. But you know. Glen or Glenda, I think, also has a big long musical dance number in the middle of it too. So it's sort of
that's padding time. Yes. So the movie is
it
not
is padding
45
time.
minutes.
You have to admire Plan 9 for being just so damned ambitious. It's basically, it does about as much as Independence Day does. With like a 1.01% of the budget.
Yes.
Hey, Andrew, I feel like your favorite's Orgy of the Dead. Am I wrong on that?
You are not wrong about that.
Okay.
Oh, dude, I love that movie. Yes.
Yeah, a great deal of my movie, Dr. Humpenstein's Erotic Castle, was centered around the kind of framework of, or the structure, I should say, of Orgy of the Dead. Unless you've seen the movie, both movies, you wouldn't necessarily know. But I can remember all the cast who was going to be stripping in Humpenstein. We watched Orgy of the Dead together, just so they can kind of know that the general demeanor of the actors in it. Because I rarely have a vision for a film, but Humpenstein was one where I was paying tribute specifically to the 1950s and 60s movies. It was all shot in black and white, if you've seen it. And so, we watched Orgy of the Dead, and the cast really nailed those expressionless expressions on the dancers' faces.
Oh, that's awesome.
Do you have to think about what is the special sauce that goes into this? Is it ambition? Is it? I mean, we like you said, we don't know how many people are actually having fun making this. The guy Jeff probably was not with Wilcow or whatever. I'm sorry, Jeff is kind of too bland a name to have committed to memory.
It does a lot of things. I think honestly the special effects look pretty cool. That's not even ironic. I think they look good.
Yeah, you use your resources, right? I guess it's the creativity.
It's a coherent story, even if it's kind of a crazy story, but it's maybe a little over-explained, but that's just how this type of movie usually works. But the
over-explanation is hilarious, because just when you think they've run out of narration, Criswell is just back at it again, just describing every last moment on screen. I found it very funny. I had forgotten that he wrote his own narration because he liked his writing better than Ed Wood's. But the thing is, they're both so impenetrable. They're both such bonkers sentence structure and syntax. It's hard to tell where one begins and the other one ends, just knowing that the hero is on. And some of his delivery, I wonder if Criswell was just doing the Criswell character. Sadly, none of his original TV show exists anymore. But like the funniest thing to me in this movie, well, one among many, but one of the funniest things in this is when Vampira comes back from the dead, and the narration switches into almost like a game show host mode, and he goes like, and the old man was doing, and then his dead wife is like, come on down. His delivery changes, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, one of the reasons I'm not a writer, especially not for films or anything, is I would write dialogue like this, I'm pretty sure. I think this is how I would write dialogue. It wouldn't sound natural. I mean, the few times I have attempted to do writing, I'm like, I can't tell a story. I can't do dialogue. I can write like an essay. I'm not saying I have no writing skill, but yeah, this would be exactly the dialogue I'd write, which is probably how I'm speaking right now.
I'm like you. I'm terrible at writing dialogue, but I can write, an article. I can write an essay, but I can't write dialogue to save my life. What's funny to me is that you have at least two people, Ed Wood and Criswell, checking each other's work. Because if Criswell was reading this and saying like, no, that's no good, let me do my own, that's at least two sets of eyeballs on these words, and it's still as bad as it is.
Yeah, this is hits really funny considering that I also watched Oppenheimer today. So this is also a movie about atomic bombs,
right?
Basically.
Oh, this is the Cliff Notes version of Oppenheimer.
Yeah,
Right.
basically, yeah, everything you need is here except for maybe communism.
I have yet to see that. As you may guess, they did not release that in Japan in August.
Wow, interesting.
Actually, there is no release date yet in Japan.
Yeah.
So,
I think that a Japanese person could watch it and not necessarily be offended. I'll say that much, but I sure as hell wouldn't want to be the person who was like, "Hey, why don't we release it here in Japan?"
Right.
Well, there was some Barbenheimer controversy in Japan because that did piss some people off.
Yeah, I could understand why.
Yeah.
It's pretty long, so it's probably best to watch it at home.
Okay.
It's 3 hours.
I'd end up taking a movie nap. We did get
I peed twice.
Barbie. They did release Barbie here, so that's
okay.
So you can do half.
It's better than Oppenheimer, anyways.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna like Barbie better than Oppenheimer. Okay. But I've gone into this on this podcast a bunch. I'm kind of mixed on Christopher Nolan because he's really into making all the characters the smartest guy in the room, and then they pass around all their smartest guy in the room stuff. And that's just what this is. This is a military general is just as smart as Oppenheimer, and they match wits all the time. And I'm like, okay, cool.
I guess I can see that. Maybe Soderbergh does that sort of thing too. I was just rewatching Ocean's 11, where everyone's the smartest person in the room.
and along the lines of like why I'm not a writer is that I'm afraid I would do that too.
Oh, right.
I'm afraid I would make everything, insufferable. So yeah.
Andrew, that mainly. Oh, sorry, Mark.
I was gonna say mainly I don't want to be a writer because I don't like being alone with my thoughts in a room and a screen.
So Andrew, you're the only one here that regularly writes dialogue. Then you want to tell us what your approach is? Is it influenced by this?
Well, I think it's worth mentioning that Ed Wood had a background in theater, and he was an actor, and later was a novelist. And so he's of tell, don't show. And so that, I think, explains a lot of why Plan 9 came out with very talky, because he's, visionaries are obsessed with their world building, right? And Space Boobs is a good example because what I didn't mention earlier is that Dee, who plays the queen of the aliens in Space Boobs and is on the cover, she was the one that came up with all of the backstory about the alien race. She wrote a lot of that dialogue between them. I think we ended up sharing directing credit as well. I can't remember. But she's a big fan of the Dune series and Alien and things like that have a lot of lore behind them. And so I would never have been able to write that stuff. I can write people talking to each other. Like, that's easy. Just because you get two characters in a room together and, that's it. For low budget filmmaking, it's cheap. Words don't cost anything.
There was a thing I was thinking about rewatching this is that it does feel realistic how all the characters argue with each other for lack of a better, there a lot of movies of this vintage, characters show up, deliver exposition, then someone either agrees with them or they disagree, and it feels a little wooden. And the back and forth of this does feel realistic, even if the aliens maybe turn it up a bit high, when Eros is just like screaming, yeah, it's like, get out of here.
He's calling idiots this whole movie.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's fun.
Eros and Tana and the ruler are so high strung. Like,
Yeah.
even though the ruler is trying to play it so cool, they're so on each other's last nerve the entire time. That was a great choice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whoever chose that. Yes.
Yeah, aliens would be really it's like they just let the costumes kind of lead them down that path. So
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
they'll do the trick.
as much as I was just thinking, like, you know, I like Bill Murray. I like Bill Murray and Ed Wood. He's not as good as Eros in the original Plan 9 because it's just so insane. I mean, I think we're supposed to just forget about Jeffrey Jones at this point anyway. But
Yeah, I
Criswell
have.
he doesn't touch the real Criswell.
No.
Yeah.
It's too bad that that's who played him in the end.
Well,
Right.
none of us knew.
No, of course,
Better.
yeah.
Yeah.
Still a good movie, but yeah,
Yep.
those with the aliens in particular and Criswell, I'd say, yeah, it's like you can't recreate that. There was it might have been cylinders firing wrong, but it was like the correct cylinders firing wrong. And hey,
Well-
Earthlings are idiots, right?
Well, I mean, some of you or all of you might disagree, but I think there was sort of a movement maybe in the I guess in the aftermath of Ed Wood the movie, like in the late 90s, early 2000s, that some people were trying to make intentionally bad movies and they never worked. Right. Like you
Mhm.
have to try, you
Yeah,
know.
there's no sincerity there.
The
Mhm.
the one that sticks out in my head is unfortunately Blood Feast 2, but there were others around that time. But yeah, it's like it's not like Herschel Gordon Lewis's fault necessarily, but everyone who was in that movie was trying to be bad.
Yeah, you can't explain to Ed Wood why someone would make a terrible film on purpose. He would not. It wouldn't compute.
Yeah.
Y'all are preaching to the choir here. I mean, I feel the same way about that, like the sincerity of a bad movie, because you are not setting out to make a bad movie. You're setting out to make the best movie you possibly can for that incredibly low budget and lack of talent surrounding you. But
I mean,
I
look
feel
at
the
look
same.
at look. Oh, sorry, John. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, one of the reviews of Space Boobs just said, "You're bad at this. You should not make another movie." And I don't give a shit about that, right? Because like
Right.
nobody's
Yeah,
gonna see
maybe.
whatever movie he makes, right? But
Right.
the thing is, we tried. It was hard. Making movies is fucking hard. I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
can't say that, can I?
You can
Yes,
say
you
that.
can.
Just did.
This
Okay,
is a fucking podcast.
It's
Fucking
it's
A.
really it's really hard to do, and
Yeah.
you have to love what you're doing. Your heart has to be in it, and everybody that was alive when being interviewed for that Plan 9 companion documentary said that Ed was just a very high energy, charming, and inspiring person. You wanted to make a movie for him. You wanted to do your best for him. Um, you know, like not unlike a Kermit the Frog type figure. And that's the whole reason why movies like Space Boobs and Bad Girl Dracula and Areola Jones and all the other ones I've done, nobody's making money. No one's going to get famous. They just like
Yeah.
it's energizing
Yep.
to be involved with something where it's like being a manager. You have to make people want to do a good job. And by all accounts, that's what Ed Wood did.
I think that's why that is so well said. And I think that's why the movie Ed Wood is so necessary to watch. Like, even if you're not just watching it because of how ironically funny Plan 9 is, just because Ed Wood is a movie, I think it really reveals something to the audience who doesn't give a second thought about the differences between a good movie and a bad movie versus a sincere movie. It is really hard work. And there is so much blood, sweat, and tears that goes into making even a quote unquote bad movie. But you have to understand the why and understand the passions involved. Like, I absolutely will rail against movies that are so-called parodies that are terrible. We had a string of them in kind of the late 90s and early 2000s, like superhero movie and epic movie and whatever. And they were all awful because you could tell how cynical they were about just cranking something out and not getting the joke, not caring about the material, compared to movies like, the two Airplane movies or Top Secret or whatever. You could argue all day long, like which of those is better than the other and which one you like better or whatever. But those movies are done by people who absolutely love the source material. And those jokes are crafted because they care about the jokes and they care about that relationship with the audience. Those later movies, they're literally just made to fill time and to very cynically make a buck. And those aren't any fun at all. This, say what you will about Plan 9, it is fun from beginning to end, partly because you're just trying to figure out how it happened at all, but also partly, I think, because I feel like I'm pulling for everybody on screen. I've seen it so many times. I know exactly what's going to happen from shot to shot, but each time, like, I'm pulling for them. Like, act your heart out. You're terrible, but act your heart out,
Also well said by, I was thinking this, I'm sure Mark was also cringing at the fact that we're going to have to watch
interrupt
5 of these spoofs.
See, because they're all terrible. Yeah,
but yeah, I agree with everything you just said, John. It's like the thing I keep going back to is that Airplane is an airport movie. Blazing Saddles is a Western. Spaceballs is not even close to the worst Star Wars movie. It's just
right.
They make that, and this is a sci-fi movie, whether people appreciate the approach or not. And also, damn if Ed Wood doesn't have a great eye for horror in this, because there's some genuine scary stuff in this.
And there are jokes too. Let's not forget, some of it is intentionally funny.
Yeah.
I would throw up Black Dynamite as being a slightly more modern one that works. I mean, that one's pretty much a blaxploitation film.
It's great. Yeah.
I loved a few years ago I saw an article on I don't even remember what, but it was like, 10 movies you never could have seen in theaters, right? Like legendary movies. And I was like, I've seen half of these in theaters, because it was like it listed Black Dynamite and like Moon and Master Anonymous and Orgasmo. I'm like, I've seen all of those.
We saw those. I can remember seeing all these.
Oh, I guess maybe they were in a smaller town.
They had very limited runs, I think. Although I was surprised Moon did. I thought that had a bigger run, but apparently it didn't.
Yeah.
Definitely remember seeing that in like a regular theater.
Me too.
Same here, Black Dynamite too. So maybe they just didn't do their journalism right, but
maybe it was written by AI and that's why we have to stop it.
And it was like 10 years ago, but you never know, do you?
Bad AI from 10 years ago.
Well, let's I think all of us love this movie. That's pretty clear. But let's talk about the bad things we like the best. I mean, there's the notorious cemetery, shaking the cardboard headstones. That's one thing. The one I got this time, and this is something Andrew and I did as kids, where we made a movie, which was The Day the Earth Went Bald, where I played a mad scientist, and 2 kids just grab the guns and like go out to this guy's house, right? Like, just what you do, you pick up guns and you go to the house. And I was watching last night where the police are just handing out guns like they're candy before they go to the cemetery. It's like, here, take this. Oh, you'll need this. After giving it to them, do you know how to use it?
And they're gesturing with the guns, pointing them at each other.
Yes. Yes.
Like holsters weren't invented yet, so people just carried them around back then.
Right. Yeah, cowboys didn't have holsters.
Holsters are not in the budget.
Anyway, that was my you find something new each time you watch, and of course I've noticed that before, especially the pointing. But it never. I guess this watch is when it was like, wait a minute, cops don't just hand Joe Schmo a gun.
Yeah,
even in the 50s. I don't know.
That's how we got in the mess we're in now. They just kept handing out guns.
The stuff that I notice is just that things that any low budget filmmaker would be like, oh God. And it's because they just don't have it. He just didn't have, it doesn't cut. There's certain things that he just couldn't film, unfortunately. And he did his best to try and cover some of that up too. He didn't have a scene of Vampira attacking those 2 old men. He there was a lot of things where he just had to, you know, they always say if you it's some saying about using narration to explain things that you can't afford or don't have. You know, it's like fix it with the narration, like the fix it in post kind of thing. Jump cuts also within a shot. You don't ever want to have that if you can help it. But some things just didn't cut for whatever reason. So most of when I watch it and I cringe is just because I know like what it's like to be missing something after you shoot and not being able to go get it back and really trying to figure out how to cover it up. And it's easier with nonlinear editing and access to stock footage and all that stuff now to fix a lot of those holes. So when I cringe at Plan 9, it's more of just as a fellow no budget filmmaker going like, damn man, I know you would rather have had this shot or that shot, but you just didn't have it.
Right.
The really obvious one is Bela Lugosi walking off and then getting hit by a car off screen.
Oh, I know.
That's
But
the big
in that
one.
case,
You know, that's just fun because of the
yeah, no, I
context.
mean, I have had many different things happen. People flake out. Matt and I have replaced an actor who shot half the film, and we had to figure out how to replace him with another actor and have it make sense. But having your star of your movie, which by and large, Bela Lugosi was the biggest star of Plan 9 from Outer Space and a total get, to have him die so early in the production, I can't imagine what that must have been like. You know, it's not like they
Like-
could fix him Brandon Lee style. You know what I mean?
Well, it's like the Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
That's exactly what this movie's like. Matt, do you remember
Dead
that
speak.
movie that we do you remember that movie we filmed that Mike Lithcott directed, where we filmed the entire movie and then he spent overnight, was supposed to copy it from one VCR to the other,
Oh,
and
and
then
he erased it.
accidentally he erased the entire thing. So we remade the entire film
no.
without you because you couldn't come back because you were in
Yeah.
Athens.
That
I-
Mark, that was the one where you cut me with an axe.
I was a serial killer in it.
Yeah, I know,
I-
but he gave you a real axe and it clipped my elbow and I bled like a
Whoa,
bastard. It didn't hurt
sorry.
though. No, that's
I
well,
forgot
you
that
had like a
happened.
bag over your head.
Yeah, I did.
He gave you a mask you couldn't see out of and a real axe and told you to go at me.
I always felt like it was really wrong, the fact that he replaced Matt in the film after he was the one who erased the film by mistake.
I remember you
Anyway.
mentioning this on the podcast before, and I have like no memory of doing this.
I think I have the only copy and I don't want anyone to see it.
Oh my
Oh,
God.
okay.
But Danielle Lowry's in that movie, isn't she?
Maybe? Yeah, I guess I should
She's the one
digitize
who
it in
says,
that case.
"Bring me my wine, red."
I don't remember that line, but anyway,
Oh my
yeah, I guess
God,
I should.
I don't remember this
I think
movie.
about it a lot. No, it's
I
good,
should
Mark.
at least
You
digitize
should.
it.
You should, man, because you know, Danielle's, gosh, she died in 2016, I think. So
I
it'd be
thought it
cool
was
to
longer
see
ago than that, but yeah.
her role.
Yeah, I'll do that. It's just
Oh, yeah, sorry.
I'm not avenging Matt's unappearance in the film in that case, but you know,
I'm not, because I don't remember it.
it.
John, what's your favorite bit of badness in Plan
Oh my
9?
God.
Since we're looking at
There's
that,
so much lovely badness. I love that there is no attention paid whatsoever to the differences between night and day in all the cemetery scenes. If you're in the studio shots, it's black as night, and as soon as somebody takes, 5 steps away and you cut to the exterior, it's daylight, and they don't care. And funerals are held at night mostly, apparently. That's
Yeah,
just
that
kind of
makes them
an odd
creepier.
thing. Yeah. I love the furniture in this movie, because I love that the ruler has this very standard, like 1940s 50s kind of office furniture, and then the curtains in his area, and then you get to the interior of the spaceship, which, by the way, it just makes no sense. It's like very tall, squared off, right angle walls below this flying saucer, this sleek flying saucer. And the furniture in there is just like, they don't even borrow the ruler's office furniture for that. It's just work tables, just workbenches made out of wood. And there's a prop, though, that keeps making it from the ruler's office to the spaceship. And that is a little like a traffic construction safety light. And it's about, say about 6 inches diameter, round piece of plastic. And then below that, a big battery pack. And I guess those things haven't changed since 1956, because I remember in the 90s, a friend of mine stole one off of a construction area, and I've got it. And now I just think like, wow, that is like an authentic looking prop from Plan 9 from Outer Space. And that thing just kept making it from shot to shot. Because it lights up. Somebody turn on the light. We're about to roll. That's brilliant. I love the inconsistency and incomprehensible nature of the alien plan. It's like, this movie is all about the plan, right? They have gone through 8 plans that didn't work. They've arrived at the 9th plan, which is super important. I have no idea what this plan is meant to do at all. Nobody does.
Bring 3 people back to stop people on Earth from denying the existence of aliens, so they will not develop the solanite bomb. Is that what it is?
I believe you mean solarite or solomonite or solanite.
Dolomite.
They say it so many different ways in the movie.
Dolomite.
I freaking love it. Yes.
And it's like, it almost makes sense, that part of the plan, but the rest of it doesn't. Like, yes, no, good. Stop people from developing bombs. Great idea.
And we're going to do it by bringing the dead back to life.
Yeah. It totally made sense to me.
Maybe he just didn't have the vocabulary for zombie apocalypse yet, right?
Right.
No, people aren't going to listen to them, and they don't want to save themselves. So they're going to make some mindless folks that's going to do the job for them. They're just going to take over the planet, because
Earth folks 11 years before Night of the Living Dead.
But there's sort of like a sub plan. There's like Plan 9A in this movie. They're like, okay, well, that didn't quite work, so send the old man back and then decompose him in front of people, because that'll that'll. I mean, the Supreme Leader is nuts. He's just crazy. He's like, no, here's what we do. None of this makes any damn sense.
Yeah, there's a lot of hair pulling over whether aliens exist or not, which seems to be much more what the film is about than the actual plan itself.
Yeah,
it's like, very topical,
argue.
Right?
Yeah,
we just had
now it is. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
right.
So Plan 1 is the day the Earth stood still, I guess.
Yeah, right. Well, that didn't work.
Well, it was originally called Grave Robbers from Outer Space, which nobody really robs either, I guess.
Rob the body from the grave.
Plan 8, I guess that's profit.
Fair. Right.
Plan 7.
Grave Robbers from Outer Space, that probably is a better title. Just how I stand by, Biohazard is a better title for Resident Evil as they use in Japan. Yeah. And Wild Speed is definitely better in the Fast and the Furious.
Yeah, for sure.
That's cool. Very cool.
So the new one is hold on. I actually picked up the last movie used. Not the one in the theater, the one before it. So it's called The Fast Saga Jet Break in Japan. So
Jet Break.
So they have more awesome titles here. So Grave Robbers from Outer Space is I'm gonna stand by that. That's the more awesome title.
I think just that would have been alphabetically next to so many other movies that start with the word grave, and there aren't a whole lot of movies that start with the word plan.
Okay,
I guess
that's good marketing. I guess
good as I could do.
Yeah, I was gonna say just 2 things to since we've had our fun of the bad. 2 things that I definitely don't think we blame Ed Wood for is the use of stock footage, which even the Ed Wood movie kind of makes fun of that. I'm like, why not? That makes perfect sense. That's smart.
People use it all over the place now.
Koyaanisqatsi. I mean, there's some use of stock footage.
Yeah.
This film, honestly, some of the shots of vintage Hollywood are great.
Yeah.
Some of those are just fantastic. Seeing businesses that, some of them that still do exist and some that are long gone. But that was just really fun after living here for a while to see that stuff captured so perfectly.
At the Brown Derby, is that in the movie?
I think it is. And all three networks are represented. You got
Yep.
ABC, NBC,
That
CBS,
was
those
really,
buildings
yeah, the NBC
very
building.
prominent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's like those
Yeah.
Hitchcock movies. We get to enjoy the cool society we built.
Mhm.
Sometimes that just makes for a cool background.
I was going to use those Hitchcocks just to shore up Ed Wood as a director a little bit more, because we recently did North by Northwest and Vertigo, of course, both great movies.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
for some reason, watching them this time around, I just noticed so much more. This is day for night. This is shot on location. This is shot in the studio. This is rear
Mhm.
projection. Like it all just like I was like, okay, this is Hitchcock, and I don't know what. Maybe it's because I'm watching it from like a critical lens, but I'm starting to like see all the filmmaking tricks, I guess, for some reason watching it this time around. So I'm like, I
Yeah.
can't really slam Ed Wood if I can see it in Vertigo too.
I was clearly seeing Hitchcock's midlife crisis, casting much older men with younger women and having it be weird.
Yep.
That's what I was noticing this time.
No, he was gross.
Yeah, there was something about I don't know. Listen to those episodes. I'm sure that I was about to repeat something I already said.
Okay. um, I am curious what if you can share a few of plans 1 through 8 with us. I'd be curious as to what those are.
Yeah. It's been a while since we did the show, and I can't give away all of it because honestly, I really want that show to get restaged at some time. I think we did it must have been 2009 because I moved here in 2010, early 2010. And I do recall that there was something that had to do with Eros trying to gain the sympathies and help of Fidel Castro. And that ended in like a mafia style execution because it had something that happened. And then there was a whole thing about Tana becoming a TV talk show host to try to convince, middle America about whatever the alien plan was going to be. So those were at least two that I know happened. And then the beauty of it is that Sean Harkleroad, who wrote the play, huge fan of the movie. So he knew that people coming to see this show would already be fans of Plan 9 or fans of Ed Wood. So he wove dialogue and scenes from Plan 9 into plans 1 through 8. So it was like all the missing stuff that didn't happen on screen in Plan 9. It was all the other conversations that Eros and Tana were having with the ruler in order to come up with what their next plan would be. And so I played Eros, and I was so happy that Sean made sure it stayed in the script that, you see, you're stupid minds, that kind of thing stayed in the show because it had to. You can't do that show without having that. So yeah, and we had Vampiro and we had Tor Johnson, and we had a lot of actors playing multiple roles, and honestly, it was one of the most fun shows and total experiences I ever had in Chicago theater. So thank you, New Millennium Theater Company and Sean for writing that play.
Okay,
Awesome.
I think that's a teaser we were looking for anyway. So.
Yeah.
There you go. There you go.
It reminds me of Evil Dead the musical, where they took the 3 Evil Dead movies and wrote them into one story. And I was like, oh
Nice.
God, that actually is genius. Like,
Yeah,
you know
makes
what I mean?
sense.
Because they're all sort of
Yeah.
remakes and, adding more to the story with each sequel. And yeah, finally they just made like the kick-ass mixtape version of all 3 movies. But
Yeah.
the music wasn't that great, unfortunately.
You're really only making 2 movies though when you do that.
Well, Evil Dead, please stab the evil in its head, something like that.
Mark, that would have been better.
Oh, well.
Now,
sorry.
Reanimator the musical, on the other hand, was amazing.
Okay. I
How-
haven't seen the musical version of anything.
How should
No?
we qualify?
That's it. That's not a very interesting thing to say.
This would make
Anyway.
good Is there a musical for this? There probably should be.
I think there has to be, right?
Should be. Yeah. Yeah.
What do you want to call this? We got films, we got filth. You can create new terms based on those two words. I guess I'll go and call it a filth masterpiece. A masterpiece of filth.
Elevated filth.
Yeah.
Plan 9 got a musical in 1995.
Okay. Yes,
Brad.
it must have.
Anyway,
I mean, look, I'll just come right out and say that it is the Citizen Kane of bad movies.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we can
It
do
really
that.
is. Yeah, I mean, think about it. This is an auteur at work again with Ed Wood doing what he does best, which is to say the worst. And it is. This movie does not do what actual bad movies do, which bore the crap out of you. This movie is not boring. It is infinitely fun. It is very rewatchable. And a truly bad movie does not have those qualities. So yeah, if it has to fall in the category of bad movies, it is the best of the bad movies.
Andrew, what term do you want to put on this?
I think film, and I would also say classic film. This movie would not exist without two things: Ed Wood's love for film and Ed Wood's love for Bela Lugosi. The thing is, when the star of a movie would die that early in production, well, that production would recast or just shut down completely. But he had the last footage of one of Hollywood's icons, of one of fantasy film's icons. And so what kind of end to a career would that be if he threw it all away? In some other universe, they did throw it away and we wouldn't be talking about this at all. So I think that the fact that he loved movies so much and he loved Bela so much that he completely MacGyvered something so that his final footage would exist is just beautiful. As a movie fan and filmmaker, I can think of no better tribute and no better like emblem of the spirit of filmmaking from its earliest days. So it is to me a classic.
I guess part of the
Bravo
bummer
to
is
that.
Yeah, one of the bummers here though is from this point on. Again, Orgy of the Dead's made after this, but Ed Wood's career and it seems his life went into decline, which makes it a little bittersweet watching this. And that's again in the Tim Burton movie, that's kind of the dramatic crux of it, right? Like this is the pinnacle, and it is a pinnacle of a certain kind of film, right? But there's no real follow up, so that's always a little bit of a bummer.
And with the highs of a personality like Ed, you also get the lows, and you add alcohol to that, and cocaine and what have you of his vices. And it is sad, but when we have Plan 9 and that's the movie he's known for that to be his artistic peak, that's nothing to be ashamed of. It's something that, well, I don't need to say it should be celebrated because it has been.
What is I did read it like 15 years ago. He wrote a like How to Make It in Hollywood book, and I cannot remember
Hollywood
the title.
Rat Race.
Yeah. I think I borrowed your
awesome book.
copy of it.
Yeah, you did. God, it what's great about that is that he's telling you how to make a good movie. He's telling you how Hollywood works. It's a instructional book on how to break into film by Ed Wood. It's just the coolest, and it's a really light read. It's tiny. I'm betting the novelization is Orgy of the Dead probably is longer than Hollywood.
And I will give his prose is a lot more readable than his dialogue would be. So it is a readable book. So it's
a how-to.
138 pages. Written in 1965. So
nice.
About roughly 10 years after this.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's awesome. And y'all can't see it, but I have a huge Tor Johnson painting on the wall that's done on it's painted on a wooden frame. A guy named Eddie at the Athens Library gave it to me, but it is it's on my Instagram somewhere. But and then I've got Vampira poster just above my desk, the Plan 9 poster.
I
That's
wish that
where
I
I
could
edit.
share with you the giant original oil painting of Vampira that I had in here, but I lost it in divorce, shall we say? So it is no longer gracing my walls.
And
They would be quite bare.
if any of you hang out at the Star Bar, my friend Jane is there often, and she's got a huge tattoo on her upper left arm of Vampire. Gorgeous.
Very cool.
Yeah, well, my friends who do splatter cinema, who may or may not show up on this podcast somewhere down the line, made an animatronic Tor Johnson out of I can't remember. They made it out of like a car wash gorilla or something, but they made it into an
that's awesome.
animatronic Tor Johnson for a
Wow.
screening we did years ago. I think it was a screening of the film Ed Wood, but I can't remember. But yeah, it was wild. It was just sitting outside of 7 Stages for the whole weekend.
Wow.
I have a 10-star review here. I guess I'll read.
Go for it.
Amazing film. It should be seen at least 9 times a day. I'm gonna leave off the name because it sounds like someone's real name. But since this was called the worst ever made in the Golden Turkey Awards, academics and others with nothing to do all day have been debating if Plan 9 is the worst film ever made. Ignoring the awful SFX, which turned paper plates into something that vaguely looked like they might be hubcaps, the facts that those actors who could act forget how to, and those that those cast members who couldn't act tried to act worse, the odd time problems between day and night, the fact that one of the lead dies 3 years before production started, and his replacement, an unemployed chiropractor, is 2 feet taller, had different color hair. I could go on, but I may miss the important bit, which is why Plan 9 is not the worst film ever made. It's fun. The sheer awfulness of Plan 9 means it becomes a good film for a giggle as you're watching it. Starting at the start, when the narrator says, "My friend, you are all interested in the future, for it is where we'll be spending the rest of our lives." Then a minute later, the narrator tells us the whole thing takes place in the past, and no, you should see it. Hopefully, somebody like Disney Plus might pick up the rights, and we could have a prequel series telling us what Plans 1 to 8 were. And John, you get a phone call to make there. Meanwhile, see Plan 9, you'll enjoy even more each time. 0 out of 0 found this helpful.
Oh, unfair.
There was some grammatical issues in there, which you could hear me hitting as I read it. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's pretty much what we said about the film. So
yeah.
I'm gonna go helpful that review. There
okay.
you go.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I do that since I got my iPad in my hand here.
It's entirely too easy to just say this is a bad movie. I mean, look, here we are in 2023 talking about this movie, and it's been discussed and written about and repackaged so many times that I can only think that Ed Wood would be very pleased to know that this movie has the legs that it has. A bad movie would have been forgotten when it came out in 1959. But this one clearly has not been.
I'm gonna go hot take a little bit from this podcast. So I think I said a few
come
times,
out and attack the movie now.
No. I'm attacking a different movie.
Okay.
No. I'm the real sin of a film is being boring, right? And dragging on, and at least Mark's on this train. When we did Once Upon a Time in America a few weeks ago for this, we did not like it. None of us liked it nearly as much as probably Plan 9. I'm curious what everyone else's thoughts are on that one, because we pretty much threw that one under a bus. Once Upon a Time in America, many very highly regarded. So does anybody want a rebuttal on that? I'm curious.
It's slightly hardly regarded.
Was that the De Niro?
Yeah, the Leone one. Yeah.
Oh my God. No, dude. That's like a 4-hour movie?
12
like
hours. Yeah.
Oh my God, dude. Forget it. No.
Okay. No.
It's a fart in a jar.
I honestly don't remember that movie very well. So that should tell you something right there. You know, I just, it's just kind of slipped my mind. And I'm
Yeah,
not
it's like
saying
a
that I need to
period
go watch.
piece.
Yeah.
No,
Um,
that's a time and
I do remember that if you guys have the DVD of Plan 9 that came out a while back that has the documentary on it, Flying Saucers Over Hollywood, which is great. And I think it was made late 90s, early 2000s, and the filmmaker who sadly has passed went to a lot of the original locations, and he went to quality studios and all of that stuff. But I think it's in that documentary that he interviewed John Waters. And John Waters said, of course, Plan 9 isn't the worst movie ever made. The worst movie ever made is Sophie's Choice. They just move on from there.
I think those of us, especially those of us who've judged film festivals, have seen
Oh yeah, you couldn't imagine.
Yeah.
It ate me up. It ate me up inside and hollowed me out to watch all this cynical crap that people sent in. And the thing is, I could probably count the number of quote unquote bad movies that were actually fun on like two hands, because there weren't a whole lot of those. And a couple of those got vetoed by other people. I remember one that was just called Guts with a Z, and it was just like people just running through an alley shooting zombies, exploding into crappy looking blood, and it was just great, but nobody wanted to show it. So
yeah, I had a friendship, a long-term friendship ended over the fact that I nominated a dog for one of the acting awards at a film festival I was a judge on. He hasn't spoken to me since.
Yeah, film festivals are some of the worst circle jerks that exist on this earth, and I am going to stop my rant there because I have scored a film that's currently playing in film festivals. But really,
well, speaking as
Oh
one
my
who this is
God.
my 15th year programming my own festival here in Athens, I mean, there's a reason why I curate it rather than have submissions.
Dude, yeah, if you're gonna circle jerk, you might as well just do it by yourself in front of people, so to speak.
I am sitting here thinking, like, I'm like, okay, I would have seen bad movies in film festivals. And the one that came to mind is like, oh, that was bad. And I was like, oh, but I remember it. So that must mean it wasn't that bad, it was a couple hiking through a gorge, 5-minute film where one of them says, isn't it gorgeous? And the other one says it back. The other one says it back, like, oh, isn't it gorgeous? It goes on for 5 minutes. At the end, they're just like convulsing on the ground, like, gorgeous and stuff. It was so I'm like, I guess that wasn't bad because I remember it.
That's so good. No, here in Athens, we have a thing called Bad Movie Night. And without fail, every movie they show is something I really love.
Yeah, I think I saw you posting about that. Which movie was it?
Most recently, Mystics in Bali.
Oh yeah, exactly.
I'm
that
like,
movie
that's a great
rules.
movie. That movie
Oh my
rules so
God.
hard. And
That
so there
movie
was
is so sick.
there was a guy, not the people that organized it, but there was a guy sitting there, and they've showed Rat's Night of Terror by Bruno Mattei before. I mean, you wouldn't believe it. They're about to show Slugs. And so there's people sitting there making jokes to each other, and I'm like, you've no idea how much better this movie is than you.
The only time I came down on the side of the hecklers was Splatter Cinema did Nightmare on Elm Street 2, and people were very annoyed at how many hecklers there were, and I don't think that movie's very good, but you know, that is open interpretation.
Well, I will always contend that Jason Goes to Hell was much better because of the heckling.
Oh my God. I saw that in a movie theater where people were literally standing on their seats yelling, and it was sold
I think
out.
you and I went.
Was it CNN Center?
That.
Yeah, it was insane. But that movie is also good. I mean, some people think it's bad. I think it's good. I think it's good in all the ways that Nightmare on Elm Street 2 is not good, which is Nightmare on Elm Street 2 is super hyper minimalist Freddy movie, and Jason Goes to Hell is like, let's just make him a creature that goes inside people.
Yeah, by the way, just this kind of dovetails back. I was not trying to be edgelordy asking about Once Upon a Time in America. I want someone to describe to me why it's good.
I've
like,
done
for real.
that before in some reviews that I've written. I've asked that.
There's a big issue with that movie that's, I mean, edgelords might think there's things about that movie that edgelords might really like, which is kind of difficult.
Yeah, I don't want to
to,
edge toward to explain why it's good to me. I want to
No.
An actual
perspective,
fan. I want that about Hellraiser 3 and Dr. Giggles, because there's fan bases out there for those movies, and I many times as I've watched those, I can't get on the train.
Yeah, there's a definite appreciation for Hellraiser 3 and 4 that's renewed, or a new appreciation or appreciation that didn't exist before that I do not understand. Because
Yeah.
even though Event Horizon is pretty flawed movie, I think it's a much better space Hellraiser than Hellraiser 4 is.
Oh, Andrew blanked to
Yep.
do a photo. Okay, that's cool. Um, I guess we will wind this one down as the time is stretching along. I was about to ask Andrew to do his thing, but do we still have a audio there? Wow, I hear something. Oh, I think he's talking to the missus or something. So,
Okay.
I guess John, tell us what's up, because I'm curious to know what's up.
Tell you what's up in my life.
Well, if you want to, or with
Plug-
your podcasting.
Plug your life, plug your work,
Yeah,
plug
yeah.
anything.
Well, in my life right now, Mission Log is taking a little bit of a hiatus because of the strike, and that's fine. It gives us time to focus on some new stuff, which will be coming very shortly. But Trek Files continues because that's just behind the scenes. It's not, a companion or rewatch show. And our live show will take a little bit of time off again until the strike is settled. But we may pop in every now and then with some special episodes with guests. So to find out all of that stuff and to follow us, go to podcast.roddenberry.com or follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Mission Log Pod. So yeah, that's what's happening.
All right, groovy. Andrew, how are you gonzoing?
When does this come out?
Next week, pretty soon.
Oh wow, okay, goodness. All right. So right now, my movie Zombikini will premiere November 17th and 18th at Athens Cine Theater, downtown beautiful Athens, Georgia. And we will do a premiere live stream that Sunday the 19th, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Gonzoriffic YouTube channel. My first ever book, work of nonfiction called Everybody's, which contains interviews and photography, comes out December the 1st. And I'm thinking probably the book launch will happen somewhere in 2024, first quarter.
All
and
right.
you can get my latest movie, Jigsaw, by going to gonzoriffic.com. Gonzoriffic. And yeah, 3 Hole Punch is on that one. Haunted Hotcakes is on that one. Really good, fun stuff. Boobs, butts, vomit,
Nice.
monsters.
Okay,
Boobs,
I'll
butts,
keep
vomit monsters.
I'll keep ours short today since we have so much going on. Just if you want to help Films and Filth keep the lights on with Patreon, we are at Podcastio on Patreon, where you get episodes early with a little extra banter and so forth. Okay.
Yep. We have other podcasts.
I was thinking of curtailing.
Well, we're
a
on
little bit.
strike.
Oh, not necessarily. Okay,
We're
well,
all on strike.
I'll do Luke since Luke is still in the Magic Forest as we're recording this. He does Luke Loves Pokemon, Hyrule Field Report about the Zelda games, and Game Show about games. Huh. Okay.
And coming very soon, we have podcast 1999. Might as well just say it since it's coming really soon.
Oh yeah, of course that releases on September 13th. John, you're already on one of the episodes, so we'll be
in the future.
We already saw you there in the
future events such as those will affect me in the future. So thank you.
Future is where we are to spend the rest of our lives.
Yeah,
it is time travel.
I regularly quote Criswell at the end of classes, by the way. I'll see
you one
in
other
the future for that's where we're spending the rest of our lives. They don't know what I'm saying.
Just the podcast I do for work, I quote Criswell at the end of it all the time.
Okay, let's hear a little more Criswell then.
Me?
No, I'm going to put in my track where I sampled Criswell for the end of the podcast.
Nice.
Oh, Jesus.
Cool.
Okay.
Which is from his album, which I guess I had on MP3 or something.
What's it called?
I've forgotten because I made this track almost 20 years ago.
I want to believe It's like Criswell does the hits or something like that, but I'm sure it isn't.
It's Chris, y'all.
Yeah, it was one of the first times like I personally like I don't really sample much. And it was one of the first times like I'm gonna try and sample something.
It's
So what did I think of first? Of
called-
course, Criswell.
Incredibly, it is called The Legendary Criswell Predicts Your Incredible Future.
Okay. Anyway, that's how
That's what
people are
it's
gonna hear the end of this particular episode.
That's exactly what everyone would have thought.
Criswell gets kicked in the predicts.
Criswell does Elvis.
Okay, I guess I will hit the stopper on the record. John, as always, thanks for coming in.